Welcome to the Post-Game Spread podcast. For those of you that have already been with us, welcome back. For our new listeners, let me introduce myself, welcome you, and explain what this podcast is all about. My name is Blake Helm. I'm a firefighter, veteran, and former pro baseball player myself. I had a wild journey through baseball that, to put it in a nutshell, let's just say I had some tools and some promise. I played some D1 baseball. I had 5 surgeries in college. Could not stay on the field, and it was an absolute battle to come back every time. After college ended for me, I ended up walking away and joining the military. I was done with baseball. Served my 4 years in the military, and towards the end, I kept having these dreams that I had to finish this. I had to have my vision quest and play pro baseball, and that to speed this up, I was playing wiffle ball with some buddies. Turned into playing in a men's league, turns into playing for the U.S. military all-star baseball team, turns into trying out and making a reality show with Cal Ripken as the host called The Player that never aired. The winner was supposed to get a contract with the Orioles, and that turned into bouncing around indie ball with mixed results, some good, some bad for a couple years, and then it all ended with a fastball dotting me in the temple, and I had post-concussion syndrome for 6 months. So an absolute crazy ride, and through all of that, I learned a lot about myself, a lot about life, and how to overcome. And I had a chance to go on my buddy's podcast a year or two ago and tell my story. And it was so therapeutic and fun and awesome to give thanks to all these people that helped me along the way. I think baseball is such a great teacher of life and life lessons if you pay attention. So from there, I thought, I want to do my own podcast. I want to give back to the baseball community in my own way and be a part of it. And I want to help guys tell their stories, their unique stories and their journeys through baseball and what they learned along the way, and help them, pass along their knowledge. Because what good is knowledge if we don't pass it along? So I've been going back and talking with former pros with interesting stories, talking with their parents, their friends, their teams, their coaches, their managers to get context, to get clips, to get quotes. And it's really been a celebration of someone's career and what they went through. It's somewhere between podcast and biography. It's positive. It's a celebration. I think we really have something here that's special, and I'd love for it to grow organically, whereas one door opens another door, and we keep opening up to new guests here. So I would love for this to reach, pros with great stories, big leagues, minor league guys. So if anyone is out there listening, you think you have a great story, or someone you played with has a great story, and you want to get in touch with us and be a part of this, be on it, my email is thepostgamespread@gmail.com. Look forward to hearing from people. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your time. Now we're going to cut to a few minutes of local ads from sponsors that support the show in Springfield, Illinois. We are also brought to you by Josh Badman of Radon Fighters. He can be reached at 217-823-9536. This is a great guy. He's my fellow firefighter. Use post-game spread as a code to save $25 on a radon inspection. If you're buying a home or just want peace of mind for radon in your house, please give Josh a call. He was a standout player at Morrisonville back in the day, and then played at SCI for Coach Torr in the early 2000s. Go see Radon Fighters. We are also brought to you by Milner Dentistry, located at 755 South Grand Avenue West. They can be reached at 217-528-3384. Dr. Ty and his staff are incredible. The place is clean. They do amazing work. They can handle all your dentistry needs. Thanks again to Dr. Ty for agreeing to sponsor us here. He was a standout at Rochester, SCI, and then later had a really cool story of walking on at the U of I. Have a ton of respect for this guy. Please go support Dr. Ty and Milner Dentistry. We are also brought to you by Jason Knadler and the Bank of Springfield. They have a whole baseball team over there. I'm talking Jason Knadler, Justin Knadler, Timmy Ballin Wallen, Eric Weaver, Ryan Murphy, Greg Morantz, Murph Mathiet, Frank Stefano. I trust these guys. I respect these guys. Go see them for all your banking needs. Bank boldly with BOS. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you. We are also brought to you by Sitco Chiropractic, located at 205 North Grand Avenue. 217-525-2035, sitcochiropractic.com. I'm talking Dr. Steve, Dr. Casey, Dr. Kyle. These are some chiropractic son of guns. Love the Sitco family. Older brother Tyler was a heck of a baseball player at SHG and SCI. Go see them for all your chiro needs, lifestyle choices, nutritional counseling. They do it all. Great, great family, great guys. Thanks, Sitkos. Bo Hart.
Hello again.
Hey, buddy. How we doing?
We're doing great. Sorry I had to delay that one. It's in a work meeting.
Hey, I guess you got to make a living, so it's okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
Oh, it's all good.
Well, how are we doing, bud? How are we doing since doing part one?
We're doing great. The people that you sent the link to and a few people that I did are enjoying it so far, for sure. So, yeah. And it's being shared around, which is really fun. And,
yeah,
I'm definitely looking forward to the next one.
It's the
next iteration.
Absolutely. I've had some warm feedback, especially from Noah texted me. I know you guys were kind of texting during the whole thing, and he was just wowed by it and how deep we got into it and how natural it felt. He said it felt like kind of two friends sitting by a campfire talking. And that was so cool, man. Because I hope by the end of this, you and I can consider each other friends. We've certainly talked a lot. I know a whole lot about your life. If there was going to be a book, I'm ready to write it. The Bo Hart Story.
Goodness.
Man, it's so where we left off. Well, first of all, this is the post game spread. Welcome back. I'm your host, Blake Helm. We got Mr. Bo Hart here. I objectively think this is one of the greatest baseball stories of all time, and I mean that. And it's an honor to help you tell it. There's no one to compare it to. No one has had the experience that you have had. So unique. To recap what we kind of went through in part one, we went through kind of how it all began. Bo's childhood. We talked to some of his really good friends. We've talked to Steve Hurst, his college coach at Gonzaga. We've talked to Jared Hurst, his teammate at Gonzaga, and now he's with Gonzaga in some capacity now, isn't he, Jared?
Yes, he's part of the alumni association, so he contributes to I think mostly the basketball program.
Okay.
When it comes to donor relations.
Gotcha.
And he's very good at his job. Let's just say that. I've seen him in action.
Yeah, for sure. But and then we went through. I mean, it was it's one of the most interesting parts, I think, is your little 3-year run from when it goes to unrecruited out of high school, walk on as a JUCO, get recruited by a D1, absolutely go off, and then you're in the Cape, and now you're about to get drafted, and then it's just and none of this was part of your plan, which I think was really interesting that we got into. I mean, some people, from the age of 10 have it in their hearts that they're going to be a professional baseball player, that they're going to play in the major leagues. You kind of just took it as it was presented in front of you and made the best of it always. And I think that totally fits in line with kind of what we're figuring out about who you are and your personality and whatnot. And we're going to get into some really fun stuff today. We got, going back, some of the guys we're going to talk to. We're eventually going to talk to Kerry Robinson, former big leaguer, current Cardinal scout, Joe Patini, former big leaguer, bench coach, Mark Dejohn, greatest manager in the world, former major league player, minor league manager, Steve Balboni, big time 80s slugger, was your hitting coach, Danny Sheaffer, your AAA coach, former big leaguer, Jimmy Edmonds. I don't need to say more. We'll get into that. And Scott Prather, your former minor league teammate for many seasons. So where we left off was your senior year, and you had hit just over 300, 13 bombs, just completed the Cape. Mm-hmm. Would love to get into kind of how that process was in terms of getting some pro scouts talking to you, what they were saying, how that felt for you.
I think the movie Summer Catch does a pretty good job of explaining how important the Cape is for marginal players, not just the top prospects.
Yeah.
And, I think at that point, my senior year in college, I was hoping that I could play at the next level, just like I had done in junior college. I want to play at the next level.
Sure.
And, we may have touched on it before, but I think the key is really to identify what you need to get better at and then put the work in to get better. And, I had a really awesome conversation with Joe Patini at one point, and we'll get into that at the right time, that
Yeah.
kind of validated a few things. And so, and I was an A ball at that time, but, or maybe double A. But, I think, we talked about not peaking too early, and
Right.
just kind of being aware of that. And I just always wanted to get better. I always wanted to put the extra work in,
Yeah.
and solicit feedback. And
Can you?
that's hard to that's a hard thing to teach.
Yeah.
Nobody taught me that. I think it was just something innate in me that wanted
Well said.
to, if I'm going to um, if I'm going to continue playing baseball and potentially professionally, that I have to ask, what can I work on?
Oh,
So
awesome. Yeah.
that was something that started really in junior college, and then at Gonzaga was really awesome because of the coaching staff. Um, I don't think they needed the question to tell people what they needed to work on,
Yeah.
but I did have those conversations, and wanted to genuinely get better, because they knew what it was going to take for their players to get to the next level.
Yeah.
And so having those conversations and doing the extra ground balls. I mean,
Yeah.
Coach Mark Mactoff, I remember, and this is not just on one occasion, that after practice would, I would say, hey, I want some extra ground balls. And I'd go out to shortstop, and he'd have a bucket of balls, a big one of those big
Yeah.
David sunflower seed
Yeah.
buckets, talking about.
Classic.
It's probably 200 baseballs in there or whatever.
Yeah.
And he would stand at home plate, and he would hit ground balls for an extra 30, 45 minutes, and his hands would be bleeding because he would be hitting them the way they need to be hit for
Yeah.
game type situations.
Firm.
And
Yeah.
firm, and I'm dirty and bloodied myself, with 4 or 5 guys going,
Yeah.
what's going on? Is Bo in trouble? No, he's not. He's getting better.
Man.
And that was kind of how I went about it.
I love that. I love salty coaches like that are willing to put that effort in with you too. That he's willing to grind out there and get bloody hands for you. Man.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, he challenged me a lot in the best way. Coach Mac did,
mm-hmm.
And in a different way that Coach Hertz did. He was more motivating and more profound, and in his speeches and in his one-on-one moments. But Mac would challenge you and bring out something extra. And I owe a lot to them for sure.
What holes in your game did playing in the Cape Cod League reveal that you felt like you had to address?
It was mostly offensively, really.
Mm-hmm.
It was the competition. It was better pitching. And again, I'm in D1, but it's the West Coast Conference. It's not the SEC.
Right.
And how would I have fared in the SEC? Probably not as well.
Right.
But the Cape kind of gave that awareness of, and again, it was wood bat, so that's a little different. But it just exposed some things offensively that I needed to focus on, and that I needed to take back after that summer for my senior season. And I mean, I didn't hit as high in average, hit the same amount of homers my senior year, but
pretty close.
But it was an awareness of, okay, these are the things I got to focus on, and
sure,
let's get to work.
And that was also the year that they changed bats, right? They went from the fives, -5s to the -3s.
That's right. Yeah, that
right
was,
in between.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so how did that go? Were you expecting to get drafted? Were they telling you higher rounds, or how'd that go?
There was no expectation. There was, back in the day, there were letters that you would get in the mail.
Yeah, man.
Not just a text or an Instagram
old school
message or an email even.
Yeah,
it was letters. So I think I got like maybe 6 or 10 letters from scouts saying, hey, we're interested. We'd love to have a conversation on what you're thinking, and those types of interactions, which was really encouraging to me because I was quite excited. I was not expecting anything.
Yeah.
but I did prepare myself to make a decision on whatever was coming.
Yeah.
It wasn't gonna it wasn't gonna be the first day. I knew that. That's the first
Sure.
5
Right.
rounds or 10 rounds.
Sure.
I knew it wasn't gonna be then. I was a senior and out of eligibility to play
Mhm.
any more college baseball, so I was at the mercy of where I fell in the stack ranking of all the players in the country.
Yeah. So then it eventually comes to draft day, or the day that you are going to get drafted, whether that's the second or third day. And how does that? Or do you get called? Do you get a letter? Who lets you know that you've been drafted? Are you looking on the computer?
No, no, it was a phone call.
Is this
So
too old for computers?
I did not have a cell phone at that point.
Oh man.
They were still kind of the car
Yeah.
phones,
Right.
$700 a minute, when you're driving around in your car.
Sure.
But no, it was a phone call. They had my home number, and
Yeah.
I'm sitting by the phone. It's kind of old
Yeah.
school, but
Right.
I was sitting by the phone, and the phone did ring, and I was there. I didn't leave the house for 3 days just in case
Sure.
something
Yeah.
was going to happen.
Yeah.
But no, the scout, his name is Dane Walker,
Uh-huh.
and from the Cardinals called, and he said, "Hey, we selected you in the 33rd round.
Man.
Welcome to Pro Ball." It was
Wow.
really awesome.
Yeah. What's that feel like in that moment? Just picking up the phone and being like, yeah.
It was, I think, obviously a bunch of deep breaths and lots of smiles, and
Gosh.
there was nothing like, "Why didn't I get drafted earlier?" or anything like
None of
that.
that.
It's
You're just
just,
appreciative of the moment. Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm 5'10", 170,
Yeah.
and play in the Northwest at a small private school
Right.
and put up decent numbers.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And for them to feel that I could potentially continue to develop,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I was, ooh, this guy's going to be in the big leagues. And
No. No.
no, I think that was the furthest from Dane's mind. He was just like, "Hey, here's another scrappy
Yeah.
kind of,
Just throw them in the mix. See if something happens.
hardworking,
Sure.
hardworking infielder, and someone that they could probably get the most out of, I would think,
Right.
and fill some rosters for the summer."
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was quite excited, and I was like, "Okay, cool." The only question I did ask, because they said, "Hey, we're going to give you $1,000 and
Yeah.
a plane ticket and a
Yeah.
pair of red cleats. You got to bring everything else." And I was like, "Okay."
Get the
And
red cleats.
yep. And
Yeah.
so the only question I said, "Well, I have a year of school left. Is there any way for that to be paid for, even though I don't have eligibility?" I asked, and he's like, "That's not on the table here. I'm sorry," but at least I did ask. I was pretty
Hey,
proud of
yeah.
myself
Sure.
to ask for something.
Yeah.
But because usually if you sign as like a junior, you go
Yeah,
like, "We'll pay
they'll
for the
give you
rest of your
that.
school." Yeah.
Yep.
So I asked, and so I said, "Okay, that's fine. When
Awesome.
do I leave?" And he said, "Well, in 4 days, there's an 8-day mini camp at the spring training facility in Jupiter, Florida.
Yeah.
Um, we'll get you a flight, and don't forget your shower shoes, kind of thing."
Yeah. Awesome, dude. Don't forget your shower shoes. Oh, that's a good line. That's a good line, man. So we're headed off. This is 99. This is the New Jersey Cardinals, the New York Penn League, low A.
Short
What's
season A
short
is what
season?
it's called.
Short season.
Yep.
Yep. Short season. Take us through going there, showing up at this little camp for all the draftees, and they kind of look at you. And from what I understand, they will kind of just run you through stuff, and then eventually they give you an assignment and they send you off, and then you're on your way.
Yeah. So it's done quite a little bit differently now. But back then, when spring training breaks in March and April for the minor league and the big league season, there is a lot of players, mostly young Latin players, that didn't make one of the teams,
Mm-hmm.
one of the minor league teams, that would stay down there called extended spring training. And so they would go down there and they would continue to develop
Yeah.
throughout the summer until the minor league draft, right? Or the amateur draft, I think is what it was called, until that draft. So they're playing for another month or two against other extended spring attendees.
Yeah.
And so not only did the drafted players, and I think my year or the year before was the first year that they capped it at 50 rounds, because
Okay.
I think it could go
Yeah, it used to
into
go
like
forever, right?
90 rounds
Yeah.
or whatever, right?
I think Piazza
I
went
played,
like the 60-something round or something crazy like that.
and so I went down there with all the other drafted players, the 50 drafted players and extended spring training. And we go down there because our college seasons had just ended, right? And so we go down there, we, put the birds on the bat jersey on and put the Cardinal hat on, and, you're living a dream at that point.
How'd that feel, putting that on for the first time?
It was great. It was great. And again, Cardinals were not on my radar from a fan perspective.
Okay.
Except for a few years prior to that when, or was it around that time? I think it was around that time when Mark McGwire got traded to the Cardinals, if you remember that.
Yeah.
I can't remember what year that was, but it was right around that same time. And I think
you were a huge McGwire fan coming up, weren't you?
I was. I mean, obviously, growing up an A's fan.
Yeah,
Bash Brothers. Watching him, Bash Brothers, and just home runs are glamorous and fun to watch. And
yes, they are.
he was,
gosh,
he was an idol.
Man, he had the curly mullet, man, back in the day.
He had an interesting batting stance as well.
Yeah.
That I tried to emulate, which didn't work for me, but I had fun doing that.
Sure.
But it was an 8-day camp where you, like I said, you learn the bunt plays and the Cardinal way of playing baseball and the little things from the coaching staff and from the minor league farm directors and field coordinators and all that. And you kind of get some, you're drinking the Cardinal Kool-Aid when you get there, as it would happen with every other organization.
Are you sizing all these other players up? Like, how do I fit in here?
Well, it's funny. We had you have like the first day of camp and you got your uniform on and you're running out to field 5 and you stretching and all this stuff. And you're trying to introduce yourself to some players and say, hi, here's where I'm from and that type of thing. And that's, it goes normally. And then they said, all right, middle infielders go to field, 4, catchers and pitchers go to field 1, and so on and so on. And I was like, okay, well, I'm a shortstop, I'm going to go to field 4.
Yeah.
So I go over there and I grab my bats and I got my glove and my helmet and, I'm dragging it around this complex and I get there and here I look around and like you said, I'm sizing up I don't say competition, but just the people around me.
Well, it kind of is a competition in ways, in a weird way.
Yeah, in a weird way, they are. But I'm the only non-Latino player in the middle infield group.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm like, oh man, like, okay. I'm looking, there's nobody else walking around. No other guys were drafted out of college here as a shortstop. So there was a language barrier a little bit.
Yeah.
But they were, I think you instantly get respect as you begin to work out with them.
Yeah.
And these guys had been around in pro ball for at least one spring training and an extended spring training.
Mm-hmm.
And, a couple of the guys were very kind and they spoke some broken English, and I was learning a little bit of Spanish. So I was able to at least, communicate kindly. I learned all the bad words later from them.
Everyone does. That's what you learn in baseball. You learn the Spanish curse words.
That's right. So, and in these groups and workouts, we're taking ground balls, we're turning double plays, we're, trying to show off our arms, and, you're constantly being evaluated, that type of thing. So it is business at that point, first time ever.
Are you feeling pressure?
I think just to earn everybody's respect.
Sure.
I think it wasn't, oh my gosh, what team am I going to make and what do I have to do that?
You were hyper-focused on that, yeah.
No, and I was super fundamental. And if you think of a Latino shortstop who might be 17 or 20 years old, I mean, baseball is their school, in their home country,
totally.
And so they were far beyond, they got the job done a little bit. I don't want to say better, but a little bit more smooth and flashy than a fundamental guy who just came from a college, right?
A little bit sexier.
So I was not as sexy of an infielder as these guys were. Although I tried a little bit here and there, I really did,
Yep.
and I
Yeah.
got some, nods from them or whatever, and it was a good experience. And again, that's what those 8 days are for, is to kind of knock the few weeks, of the rust off that the season ended,
Right.
and then take some batting practice. And I'm using a wood bat exclusively,
Hmm.
and trying to figure out what models you like and what feels comfortable. And you're doing simulated games with
Yeah.
pitchers who are throwing full speed, and
Uh-huh.
trying to make trying to impress somewhat. But again, it's all new, so
Sure.
there's all nerves and things. But it was a good 8 days. I'm meeting people from the draft, and a couple people that I had, or one in particular, I think, his name was Jimmy Jernell. We played in the Cape together. He was our closer. So,
Okay.
and he went to Illinois, and he was like a premier D1 closer, and threw kind of a little bit three-quarter arm, like at 95. He was drafted, I think, like in the
Woo.
third or fourth round,
Yeah.
and he was intimidating. And when in the Cape, I mean, he performed awesome,
Hmm.
and so that was nice to see a familiar face. And then just kind of meet some other guys. That's what it was from the draft. And
Yeah.
then we all, I'm trying to think. The first round pick that year was Chance Capel, from Texas A&M. He was a stud.
Yeah.
Um, there was a couple other ones, a couple of guys from Rice, a couple of guys from maybe a junior college, and
Yeah.
I don't think there was anybody out of high school. I can't remember if anybody was out of high school, but Albert, he was like the 15th round pick, but he held out. He didn't sign right away, so he wasn't
Yeah.
there. But
Wow.
again, nobody knew Albert at that point.
Right. Yeah. He wasn't
So,
Albert yet.
but yeah, so I made the short season A team,
Yeah.
in because the A ball, all the other teams had broke camp already,
Right.
months before, several weeks before. So the only team that was there for all the drafted players and a few of the extended players, was in New Jersey. And I think that was it.
What did you end up settling on bat model wise? I'm obsessed with bats. I've got like a million.
I don't think I settled at that point because it was just like the pro stock laying around. So
Right.
I think I was using some M110s.
Huh. Nice balanced.
Yeah, it's a good balanced bat. I think I used that for the first year or two until I got an agent and I started to dabble in some other. But the S318 was the best model that I felt was really
Dude,
good.
that's my
Sure.
favorite bat of all time. I love the S318. It's perfect. It's
That's
got a
it
little
is.
bit of head to it.
Yeah.
It's not too top heavy, but a little bit of head, enough head.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And then so I love that model. I did that for years, and then I tried
Mhm.
one. I think it was a T141.
Yep.
It was just a
Thin.
little bit of a thinner, wasn't such a big barrel,
Right.
and I had some success with that. So those are the two kind of toward the end of my career that I was
Sure.
dabbling in.
Sure. Cool. So let's just take us through the whole experience. I know, who are you living with there? How are you eating? How is the travel?
I mean, it was very minor league,
Yeah.
very minor league. I stayed with a host family, and again, this season's only like I think 2.5 months. We played 90 games,
Right.
and it was in the New York Penn League, so nothing was too far. I think the furthest trip, gosh, I want to say the furthest trip was maybe 4 hours or something like that, or six
Okay.
hours.
Right.
I'm trying to remember, but no, it was a good experience. Yeah, I lived with the host family. They treated us really well,
Nice.
and
Those can be a crapshoot.
yeah, no, I lived at a great house.
Nice.
I had my own. I had like the basement, like all to myself, that opened up into like they had like a lake,
Oh, wow.
at their house, or a pond or whatever. So it was all I came and go as I pleased. They would, you know leave dinner like
Yeah.
like in the microwave for me, that kind of
That's
thing.
awesome. Yeah.
They
'Cause
would they
you're not making much.
Right. No, I made 850 a month,
Woo.
and that
Yeah.
was, and good thing I didn't have to pay rent. So
Right.
that was
Yeah.
really good. The stadium was great. I remember driving to the stadium the first day, and you're just kind of going through. It's in New Jersey, so you're kind of just windy roads, and you come around like this kind of hill or whatever. I remember this. It was windy, and there were like cornfields everywhere, which is surreal. And then you come around the corner, and then there's this, 3,000 seat minor league stadium just in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's surrounded by corn. And, obviously it's just kind of puts that image of Field of Dreams in your head. And
Oh, that's cool.
that was a really fun experience to kind of go there. And I hadn't really played in large stadiums, in the West Coast Conference, there's maybe 500 people at your games.
Right.
It's not Ole Miss where there's 10,000 and, screaming fans, but
It's true.
it was great. It was packed every night. There was
cool.
2,500, 3,000 people there every night. And the field was pretty good. And that was the start of it. The clubhouse was metal lockers with a training room and a bathroom and nothing special.
Yeah.
Nothing special at all. But it was, that's where we got to be, you made some friends and you spent some time on and off the field with each other, going out to dinner or grabbing a beer or whatever, that kind of thing. So it was a really good first experience for me, for sure, in New Jersey.
Yeah. So I'm looking at your stats here, and I think this is fascinating. Tons of guys come into pro ball in their first year, and it's an adjustment. You go from being the dude to being one of everyone is a dude there, or they were the dude where they were at. And
totally,
some guys struggle in their first season in pro ball. Stat wise, it looked like you did. How did you? I mean, you hit 184 in your first year. So you tell me how that felt.
Yeah, I think I played in 75 games roughly of those 90.
Yeah,
and I played 25 at third, 25 at short, and 25 at second. And I had always played shortstop. So that was an adjustment to play some new positions. But defense, I don't think was an issue. I think that was always pretty solid. We always were doing extra work.
Yeah.
Making sure that I could turn the double play as a second baseman versus a shortstop. That was a little bit of adjustment. But I think that second became a preferred position for me by the organization by that point toward the end of the year. Defensively, because I had a shortstop arm, but at second, which was an advantage.
Is that a conversation that's had? Does your managers talk to you and say, "Hey, we're thinking we see you more of this"?
I think like after the fact, but it's more of, "Hey, this is where you're probably really going to be. Own it," kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But offensively, I think I was 0 for. I think it was maybe the 30. Maybe I was 0 for 8. I think I started my career 0 for 8.
Yeah.
And then my first professional hit was a home run, which was really kind of
cool. Yeah.
And it was like, I never hit a homer. Well, I guess I hit one in Cape Cod, but this one's just so memorable because of the sound, I think. And that's what I remember. And it was at home and in front of our fans and things. And I remember how loud it felt, or I heard it off the bat. It felt in my ears. And I was like surprised that it was a home run. And so that didn't like set me off or anything, but I think it gave me some extra confidence, that I'm not overmatched and that I can compete here.
Yeah.
And I just need to go through the process.
I was getting to that. So you felt like you belonged, even though I see this 184 number, you felt like you belonged and you weren't overmatched. You were just figuring it out, kind of.
I think with the level of competition there, I needed, a couple hundred at bats to I wasn't going to cash it in or anything. There was one guy on our team who started his career 0 for 36. I remember that. And his name was Chris. It sticks in your head. His name was Chris Ewing. And I remember when he got that hit, like everybody celebrated for him, because it took several weeks. And I think he may have been feeling, or maybe I'm not ready for this. Right. Sure. And I think to some level I was feeling that as well, even though I had maybe 5 hits, but I remember toward the end of that, I started to ball more solidly.
Okay.
I started to, and that was, I think, what they, were evaluating me on was, or everybody, not just me, but
sure.
But how are you going to handle the wood bat over several hundred at bats? And I think I had one minor league coordinator or coach tell me, he's like, we need to see 1,000 at bats really before we really start making
Know what you
decisions
are.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like, thank gosh, that's good. I can take a little bit of a break, because defensively the game wasn't too fast for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't overmatched out on the field at all. I
Okay.
got a good glove and a good arm, and I was
Yeah.
fast, and so that wasn't the problem. But yeah, offensively it took a little bit, which is why there's so many minor league levels.
So
Not
that
only
guy,
for not only for the pitchers to develop, because that's a
yeah,
whole nother
sure.
thing for pitchers to develop over in each level, but offensively and defensively for the players, it's each level it gets a little bit harder.
Absolutely. So did that put your mind at ease a little bit when that guy said we need to see 1,000 at bats? We're not just going to cut you right now, or hitting below the Mendoza and low A can be your ticket out of baseball.
It can, but yes, it was. I don't know if it was that season or the next spring training, and I said, oh, okay. So they're like, don't worry about your stats. I mean, I don't know what the stats were for our team. I don't think there was maybe one or two guys close approaching 300. I don't know.
Okay.
But I know I was playing with some good players and trying to do the extra work with the hitting coaches that would come through, and with our manager and things. So I knew I had a little bit of time, a little bit of a runway.
Yeah, awesome. So overall, a positive experience in your first year in pro ball for the most part, a learning experience.
I would say so. Well, and then I got, after the season, I got to go to instructional league.
Oh, cool.
And that's at the spring training facility. So, I got to go there, and I wasn't a prospect by any means. It was just like, hey, let's grab a handful of, let's put a team together.
But you weren't a suspect either.
I was not a suspect either. But I think
in between.
That's right. That's right. They put the team together that they wanted to see more development. So I was happy that I was selected, because some players weren't selected to go there.
Absolutely. Yeah. They see something in you.
Yeah. So that was great. So then it was probably the 184 is what they saw there. Like, we need to continue to evaluate.
Sure.
So that was fun. And that's when, I think it was like a 6-week kind of thing. Again, it's like spring training is what it is. You're doing workouts in the morning and games in the afternoon. And, but that's when I met Albert Pujols for the first time, was that instructional league. And that was really cool. I got to tell you a funny story about, or not funny, but an amazing story about that. So
let's go.
He comes, so I think it's maybe a week into it, or 2 weeks, or I can't remember, but we were at Roger Dean Stadium, which is where all the major league spring training games are played.
Yeah.
And there's, 8 fans there. There's no fans. It's not, they don't sell tickets to these games. It's just, very quiet. And we were already in the dugout. I think the game was about to start. And this, beast of a man comes into the dugout, and we hadn't seen him. And we all kind of were getting to know each other too. So we're like, who's this guy? And I was like, hey, I'm Bo. And he's like, Albert, kind of that. And he didn't speak great English at that point.
Yeah.
But he was trying. It was, he was doing a good job. But I felt bad for him, because he put his glove on the ground and put his hat on it. And, we all had our names on our gloves at that point, right? I think I had one in college that had my name on it, but he put his glove down, and it said 2 holes instead of Pujols.
What? And
I felt bad, because I think the glove was ordered and they misspelled his name. And I was like, really? I was like, oh man, that sucks. Like, I would be, if my glove said Bo Fart, I would feel bad, and I would hope other people would feel bad for me too. But I saw that, I was like, oh man, but we all knew it, because he had I think his name was on his jersey, but
2 holes.
His glove was misspelled. I felt so bad. But then soon I didn't feel bad, because his first at bat in the instructional league game, when he hadn't been there for the workouts, was a absolute bomb.
Really?
Into left center. Yep. And then we're like, oh, okay, that was nice. Are you ready to play? Of course you are.
Yeah.
And then his next at bat was also another home run.
Man.
And so immediately we're like, not who is this guy, but it's like, oh my gosh, this guy is incredible.
2 holes can play.
Yes, he can. Albert Two Holes, 2 homers. They should have called him. How about so?
Wow.
So he instantly got respect from everybody,
Sure.
and then he was, I think felt more comfortable with some of the Latino guys, and but that was the first experience of him, with just being there for like a month, watching him play, and getting to know him a little bit, but hardly, at that point.
That's
But the instructional league was good from a development standpoint. It gave me an extra, 50 at bats or whatever. It gave everybody extra 50 at bats, and
yeah.
I think I did okay. I think I probably hit maybe 200, maybe 225 or something. I think they did keep stats, but I don't remember. But there was a lot of extra work. There
Yeah.
was a lot of breaking things down with the coaches, and I think that was a good thing that I went there, especially for somebody who's a marginal
Yeah.
roster filler.
Absolutely.
That they're like, okay, well, this guy can catch the ball. Let's see how. Let's just get him some more at bats. I felt really good when that ended, and that was in October, the end of
Yeah.
October.
Okay.
And then I finally went home that year.
And so then, what does the rest of your off season look like? Are you obviously? I imagine you're having to get a job. I imagine you're. I hope you've looked kind of at your whole season, the totality of it, and thought, what are some things I need to address in the off season? I'm also kind of fascinated on what you do in terms of your off season, in terms of workout wise and stuff like that. So, what do you do job wise in the off season?
That year, I believe I was gosh, what did I do? I don't think it was this year. I think I was the only job that I had was I got a phone call from my high school basketball coach, who
Okay.
had been following the minor league, I guess, I don't even think it was if there was a website or whatever, but he knew I had signed out of Gonzaga and that I was back in town at
Yeah.
home in Santa Cruz is where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, hey, what are you doing this offseason? I was like, I literally got here 2 days ago or something like that. And he's like, okay, are you doing anything? I said, nope, I'm just going to be hanging out and, might find a little part-time job or something. I'm going to
Yeah.
work out and do that. And he's like, well, do you want to coach the freshman basketball team? And I'll pay you. And I was like, yes. I said, that sounds awesome. It'll give me something to do. And
Sure.
again, in high school basketball, we
That's
talked
funny.
a little bit about it, but I was fundamentally sound and I knew
Yeah.
the plays. I may not be able to, Euro step anybody. But I think he had some trust, and I think he liked the way I played.
That's cool.
And I was like, sure, I'll do it. I was like, well, when is this all going to start? He's like, today. Tryouts are at 3.
Coach
I was like,
Hart.
Stu, are you kidding? I'm not your first choice, am I? Something like that. So
That's great.
So I got to do that in the fall and winter.
Yeah.
And we had a 500 record. I think we were 7-7, and got paid a few $100, and it was fun to be the coach. It was a lot of fun, I'll be honest. But it goes quick when you're working out and you're coaching, and that's because I only really had December, January, and then the middle of February. I think I reported to spring training, so it was a short off season.
Yeah,
and I later became a personal trainer, I believe.
Oh, cool.
At 24 Hour Fitness. I did that for an entire off season.
Really?
That was really cool. I got to work out for free. I think there was some design around getting that job, but that was the other minor league job that I had in between seasons.
I thought I read somewhere that right before your big season in the show that you were working at Nordstrom's.
Yeah, that was later. That was between AA and AAA.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we'll get to that. I think
we'll get to that.
A couple seasons. Yeah.
But what were you doing? So this is going to be your first time on your own. You're not with the Gonzaga strength coach or any of that. You're on your own, doing your own thing. What are you doing, strength, speed wise, all that stuff?
Oh, I got a huge packet. There was a minor league packet, and I just followed that. I'd go to the gym and be there for 2 hours or whatever, and I lived in California, so the weather was great. So I was able to go to my old high school and old junior college, and and kind of mix in and get a little bit of work during their winter workouts and things.
Okay.
So that was fun. And, that was kind of, big man on campus kind of feeling as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Come in there with my big Cardinal bag and,
Yeah.
wood bats rattling around in there kind of thing was kind of fun.
Absolutely.
And so I get to tell stories and talk to the team and that type of thing. But yeah, I was using those fields and a lot of tee work and just trying to get ready, because spring training is long enough, but your arm had to be in shape and you had to be in physical shape. And I did plenty of work in the off season to be ready for spring training each year.
Yeah, and this is going to be your first like real spring training. This isn't going to be extended. This is like the real deal spring training. Yeah, I guess if we're ready to go there, let's go on to year 2000. I'd love to hear about what your first spring training experience was like.
It was great. I think that was when all the teams were there, because I still hadn't met more than half the organization, right? Other guys that were out of college the year before were already on other teams and things. So it was fun to kind of get into a good mix of not only Latino players, because that was who I was around mostly, from a workout standpoint before the season in New Jersey, but the players would come back that I played with, and then there'd be new guys that would be, I'd be on, whatever team. You would have team assignments every week.
Right.
You'd be like, okay, I'm going to check the board. Okay, what team am I on? I'm on the high A team, or I'm on the double A, trying to, these are the people who are being evaluated. And then each week, as you go about your business and as the games start, each week they get shuffled around. Some guys get released, some guys move up because they're doing really well or whatever. There's that probably situation room with magnets everywhere, and you have a magnet with your name on it, and they're constantly shuffling. How are we going to not only provide development opportunities at the level that the organization needs, but also fill these rosters? And so I'm sure that was those are late nights for everybody there in the room where it happens. But I think it's you're just going about your business and then checking. It's like, okay, I'm cool. I'm on the double A team this week. I'm trying to make the double A team. And I think there's some half truth to that, but you go about your work. This is the ultimate job where you only can control what you can control.
Yeah.
You don't know what they're thinking. They're not telling you freely. You can maybe ask a couple things, and the usual response is like, oh man, my arm is sore. I gotta go in the training room. And then you got coaches and managers who've been around pro ball for 20 years, and they're like, can't make the club if you're in the tub. Those types of cliches where you're like, well, shit, maybe I shouldn't be in the training room at all, even though I'm hurting.
Yeah, it's a bad look.
So you learn those types of things, right? The optics of everything that you do.
100%.
And so, you're just going about your business and you're sleeping here. I'm in a hotel room with a roommate at the DoubleTree in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Yeah. So, you're going out and having a couple of pops, after the workouts.
Yep.
Trying not to stay out too late, but, I always did. And, but each spring training, I would stay out not as late, like incrementally, like
really
as I get older. Yeah, because, you're running around, you're single, you're having a good time, you're trying to just be social and, I'm a pro baseball player, blah, blah, blah,
Absolutely.
Trying to impress somebody. So, but it's good. You build relationships and
sure.
And then I ended up making the was it the high A team? Yeah, I made the high A team in Potomac, Virginia.
Potomac Cannons, which is the Carolina League.
In the Carolina League. So I made that club, and I wasn't a starter. The shortstop was Jack Wilson, who later won a batting title with the Pirates.
Yeah.
And so he was the shortstop on that team, and a guy named Jason Bowers, who had been around, junior college guy from Florida, who actually lives in Memphis, and we hang out from time to time and correspond a little bit. He married a girl from Memphis, as did I. So
Lydia.
but Jason was the second baseman, and then there were two guys, me and another guy who coincidentally was a 33rd round pick the year before.
Uh-huh.
His name was Tommy Kidwell, and his grandfather was George Kissel.
Oh, wow.
Who George Kissel is, he is Cardinal lore.
Yeah.
He 60, 65, 70 spring trainings. I mean, he'd been around baseball. He knew so much about the game and the evolution of the game it was and now what it is now. And he later helped me try to learn how to switch hit when I was 29. He was the guy who taught like Vince Coleman and Ozzie Smith and Willie McGee all how to switch hit.
Oh, I'm fascinated when we get there. It's not time yet.
Yeah, no, but he was Tommy's grandfather, and so Tommy got he got drafted, and he wasn't much bigger than me. In fact, he probably was shorter and slower, and but he could play, and so Jason. So Jack Wilson's playing short, and like 3 weeks into the season or a month into the season, he got traded to the Pirates. I think he played on the winter ball team, and one of the bench coaches or the big league manager was with the Pirates, and they wanted Jack, and I think they made this trade. So guess what? Jason Bowers went from second to short, and then I was a starter.
Oh, cool.
So it created an opportunity, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Instead of having two kind of platoon guys, me and Tommy, it turned out where I got lucky that they put me in there, and that was the start of me playing every day, which was awesome because if you're not playing every day, you're not really on the radar.
That is the dang truth. And I'm seeing decent stats here: 256, 4 triples, 25 homers, 75 games, 273 at bats, no bombs though. And what's interesting though, and a trend in your career is Bo Hart is not afraid to get hit by a pitch.
Yeah, I don't know where that really came. I think that was the toughness that Gonzaga was instilling in everybody.
13
I got hit a
pitches.
lot. Yeah, I got hit a lot at Gonzaga, and you just I don't want to say it's a mindset, but in professional ball, it's a little different because you miss time. That's a very negative thing, especially when you are working up through the ranks of A ball and double A.
Absolutely.
So, and I think I should have not have been trying to be such the tough guy because I didn't realize until I'll tell you the story I'm going to tell you in a minute.
Oh yeah. You eventually ran into like broken hand issues, didn't you?
Yeah. And so I really should have been more elusive at the plate.
Well, you were trying to provide value in some way,
somehow, some way. And it couldn't just be hitting bombs because I didn't hit any that year.
Right.
And it wasn't just stealing bases because that wasn't my game. I need to be doing a lot of things well, not just one or two things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah. And so I was the starter. And then I don't know if it was 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, whatever, but it was really early. And it was just a freak thing where the ball was thrown kind of up and in, and not maliciously at all. But I got my face out of the way, but my hands stayed there, and my bottom hand, which is my left hand, was exposed, and I got hit by a pitch, and I didn't know it was broken. I'd never done anything like that before. So I took my base and the next guy punched out or whatever. So I grabbed my glove and as soon as the first baseman, threw the ball out to get warmed up for the next inning, I was like, that does not feel right.
That's not right.
And that was not right. So I was like, holy cow. So the trainer comes over and he's doing his little test. He's like, yeah. He's like, I think it's broken. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And so.
Is that this season or this is in the future?
That was that season after Jack got traded.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep.
This season, Jack got traded. I started at second, but yeah, broke my hand out of nowhere. So then Tommy got to play for the next 2 months. So that was great for him. But again, I'm on the shelf for 2 months.
What's that feel
healing,
like?
That was lame.
Yeah.
I'm traveling with the team.
Yeah.
I can
really,
run.
like,
right. I can run.
Yeah.
I can throw. So
were you pinch running?
No, I was on the disabled list.
Oh, okay.
But I could run and train. I just couldn't hit or catch anything. So I could keep my arm in shape.
Okay.
And I'm shagging, and I'm a bench guy. That was my role at that point. I didn't sit and sulk that anybody could really see. But no, but that was part of it. And that was, that stunk because I missed 2 months, of a 4-month season. I missed half the season. So
did you miss 2 months and come back, or that was the end of the season? Okay.
No, that was early. So I missed 2 months. I came back, and I think I became the starter again.
Yeah.
And then finished the season, pretty well to be at 256 and 25 doubles and whatever.
Yeah.
So so that was awesome. It was good, and I think that was a good time, or a good way for them to kind of say, okay, well, he missed a little bit of time, so let's give him another opportunity, the next year to go to spring training.
Absolutely.
And but I think it was that year. Was it that year? I was in the Arizona Fall League.
Okay.
I
have it after your next year.
After the next year. Okay. So 2001 after
Because
so
you had a really strong year the next year. Very strong.
Yeah. So that next year I went back to Potomac to high. So I skipped low A twice. So I skipped low A, went to high A twice, which is not uncommon to repeat a level.
Yeah, sure.
Especially missing some time. And again, I'm not a prospect by any means.
Right.
So I got to go back, and then I was the starting second baseman for pretty much the whole season. And then, like, they announced the all-star team because I was hitting 300 and doing pretty well. And the day that they announced the all-star team that I made it, we were playing in Lynchburg, Virginia, and I got hit by a pitch again and broke my thumb.
Man.
So that was really
same hand,
different hand. No, top hand this
time.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So this way, right here, and so I got hit by a pitch, broke my thumb, and that was devastating. I'll be honest. And so, and the funny part of that story is that I get hit by a pitch. I go to first, and the trainer comes out, and I'm kind of, slumped over, and I'm holding my thumb, and he, I didn't wear batting gloves. And so he's looking at my hands, and he takes my thumb, and the manager's sitting there, he's like looking at my thumb, looking at the trainer, looking at me. He's like, what's happening? And the trainer pretty much moves my thumb independently of the rest of my body because it had been shattered. I found out. And our manager is like, are you sure it's broken? and he's like, look, dude, it's not attached to anything. It's just kind of hanging there.
Independent.
And so that was, again, devastating. And another 8 weeks that I didn't play. And
in the middle of the season?
In the middle of the season.
Wow.
And so the team said the team owner, minor leagues, were owned by pretty much independent, wealthy people at that point. So the guy I didn't get to play in the All-Star game because it was the next week or whatever, 2 weeks from there. So I had thumb surgery to put 4 pins in there and attach all the bones that had been shattered. And that was crazy. I watched the surgery. They did not put me under general anesthesia. So they kind of put my hand and strapped it in. And then they had this special machine on it where it was an X-ray machine or a TV that was connected to it. So it was like an X-ray video. And I got to watch them drill the pins into my thumb. Wow. It was trippy and really kind of a cool experience. But so I got a cast on my hand, and they got the pins in there, and then they sent me to experience the All-Star game and all that kind of stuff, which was
cool.
Fun.
The organization,
So I coached first, right? I coached first, and was on the team and all the ceremonies and things, and got the recognition, which was really cool. And the guy who replaced me, because they needed to replace it with another player, replaced me, ended up hitting the game-winning home run in the 9th inning or whatever. So he was like the MVP, and so that was really fun for him, and I, we had a cool moment. But but yeah, so I missed another 2 months, and then I came back. I think I finished the season pretty strong. Maybe it was only 6 weeks left in it,
Yeah.
but I ended up hitting 300 and
Yeah. A really strong year. 305
yeah.
and 279 at bats, 25 doubles, 5 home runs. Again, getting hit by a lot of pitches, 15 hit by pitches here. But, obviously a strong year. Like,
Yeah.
going from, you obviously weren't a suspect. You were kind of in the middle, but maybe now more on the prospect side.
Well, and then that's where the Arizona
They
Fall
send you
League
to the
came into
fall
play.
league. Yeah, absolutely.
So that the Fall League is that.
Hey,
before
we move on, I'd love to hear, was there anything unique about your living conditions or about playing with the Potomac
Oh,
Cannons?
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's when I started to live with Scott Prather.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And so at the beginning of that year, it was like 4 guys to an apartment, right? Because again, we're not making very much money, so we got to keep the rent down. There's no host families at this level.
Yeah.
And so, I was living with a couple guys. Les Walrond was one of them. He was really fun to hang out with, and I ended up facing him in the big leagues. He was pitching for the Royals, and that was really fun later. But because I got a hit off him, that's why.
There you go.
But I was living with Les and a few other guys, and then when Jack got traded, I think something happened where Scott, or maybe I can't remember, but Scott had a roommate and then ended up needing a roommate. And I was like, right here, let me get out of this, frat house. And can I go have my own bedroom and that type of thing instead of sharing? Even though I like the guys, I just, I'm an adult here.
There are some truly unique living experiences in minor league baseball. Like, people live in some very strange blow up mattresses in the kitchen, all kinds of shit like that.
Totally. But so I went from, the frat house to literally Scott's, has all this rented furniture and internet and stocked full of fridge,
living well,
full fridge, and he's living well. And I'm really lucky that he said, "Hey, Bo, you want to come live with me?" I was like, "Yeah, please." And, so that was comfortable and much better.
Yeah.
And we played together for that season, and then the next season, and it was really great because he and I got to be really close, and we always just lived together all the way through A ball into Double A, and he became a pretty good friend. And I know that you talked to him.
I did,
so he's got a couple kids. He lives in Atlanta, and
he's fun.
But yeah. So at the end of that season, I went to the Fall League, which is, another, it's not instructional, but it's major league sponsored. And there's like 6 teams at all the Arizona.
It's absolutely an honor to be invited to the Fall League. Like, they considered you a prospect if they're doing that. They want,
I think at that point, because it was like, you would be like one of, I think 5 or 6 players from an organization put onto a team with a collection of other 5 or 6 players. And I think our team was the Cardinals, the Dodgers, the Astros, and the A's, I think it was. And I played against a lot of guys or played with a lot of guys, not only against, but with it on this team that we became friends, that ended up playing in the big leagues for years. So it was really good. And again, I was playing good defense. I played a little bit of third.
Can you take us through what's a typical day in the Arizona Fall League?
I mean, again, there's probably like a 4 or 5 day kind of warm up camp, where you get to meet your manager and you meet your teammates, and you're with Cardinal guys, which are cool. And another guy that I played with, John Gall, was on that team.
Yep.
And another prospect, a guy who really should have got more of a big league opportunity, hit 300 almost every year in the minor leagues, including Double A and Triple A, and should have got more of a look, to be honest. But you're building relationships, but then you're also being evaluated not only by your organization, by all the other ones that are on that team and in that league.
Sure.
So, but so many guys who were at the top of their level in A ball and Double A, making their way up, but true prospects. So it was an honor to go there. And so we would just, do the workouts, and then it became only games, right? Where we'd have just a normal arrival time, just like you do at any minor league or professional baseball day or game, where you come in there, you stretch, you take batting practice, you get ready for the game, you play the game, and then you eat the after game spread and you go home and you do it all over again. So,
The post
but
game spread.
That's right. So the post game, that's right. Nice plug. So, but it was good. I mean, I wasn't playing every day, and none of us did. And we just kind of moved around, and we ended up being in the championship game of the fall league, which was really fun.
And you're on the Phoenix Desert Dogs, right?
I was on the Phoenix Desert Dogs. That's right. And so it was really fun to be on a winning team with all of this collection of prospects. And I was on first base, and this is like in the bottom of the ninth inning. I was on first, and the guy tried to pick me off and threw it down the line past the first baseman. So I hustled all the way to third, and I think I was the tying run. And I got to third, and I think the next two guys either walked or something because I ended up with the bases loaded. And a guy named Mike Hessman he was on the Detroit Tigers, I think.
Oh, Hessman,
Hessman. He's like the minor league home run champion now.
Of all time. Crazy.
Yeah, of all time.
Yeah.
And he came to the plate. I think he was with the Tigers at the time. And so he came up and hit a walk-off grand slam to win the Arizona Fall League Championship. And I was right in the middle of that, just jumping around and having the best time. And, that was the first time I got to, win a ring. It was a championship. Cool. And that was the first year that the Fall League gave out rings. So I still have it, of course. It's in a drawer at home. So that was a really good experience, not only for development, but to be on a winning team.
Oh yeah, just being invited to that must have been a moment for you. Like, I'm something's happening. The Cardinals are valuing me, and they see something in me, and they're sending me here for extra work with the best prospects and all the organizations. Are you having that realization at this point?
I think internally a little bit I am. I'm not. Again, I'm not thinking my shit doesn't stink or anything like that. Again. But again, I was still an A-ball. So I just felt better. I think that's when I ended up getting an agent and just having someone to be my voice if anything were to come up as I progress in my career, which is that was really cool.
Yeah.
To have an agent. And so it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. And I ended up meeting somebody that was really special to me at the time in Arizona. So I never went home. I stayed in Arizona and got an apartment, and that's when I think it was AA. No, I didn't get a job at that point. I don't think. I think I had made enough money because when you're sponsored by the MLB, you get paid a little bit more. So I was getting paid.
Oh, cool.
And that was much better. But I stayed down in Arizona in the off seasons for the next couple of years because I had met someone pretty special.
What were you doing off season wise? Baseball and workout wise, anything unique or same kind of?
I mean, it was still kind of the Cardinal workout program, but being in Arizona was awesome. I really liked it.
Yeah.
The weather was great. It's kind of a winter, but it's sunshine everywhere. And so I think I'm trying to think if I ended up getting a job, but the Fall League, I think ended in November, I want to say. And then, I think I kind of piddled a little bit and then ended up going to spring training the next year.
Cool. Awesome. And then I'd love to get to some Scott Prather quotes here. I had a great conversation with this guy. He's a current, realtor down in the Atlanta area, former pitcher in the Cardinals organization, longtime teammate, as you said, roommate. So are you cool if I get to a couple quotes and whatnot here, buddy? Yeah. He was funny. Let's see. Bo got called up and moved in with me, and we hit it off right away. He said, I'm a Southern Georgia boy and he's a California boy, and it might be a yin yang thing, but we always got along really well. I dug his laid back style and I appreciated it. And that's funny. Yeah. Someone messaged me after, actually Ryan Aper, my good buddy, that was a guest, messaged me and said, I could tell right away that Bo is a California guy. There's just something you can hear in the voice of it, shared a lot in common, movies, silly sense of humor. He talked about, and I sent you a text message about this. You guys can quote the movie Basketball. You'll send each other quotes back and forth and little funny things. And
totally. Yeah. Scott was, he was a really fun roommate,
Yeah.
He was a relief pitcher, and he he really kind of helped me open my wings socially, I think, a little bit
Yeah.
as we went out after the games pretty much every night.
Yeah.
And he facilitated that really well, and being social out at bars and restaurants
Yeah.
and things, with not only with me but with other teammates, and he was definitely a good time and a good influence on me for sure.
Yeah.
And he was, a little background on him. I don't know if you did any background, but he was like a superstar in Atlanta,
Yeah.
basketball wise and baseball wise. And he went to Georgia Tech. I think he went to what high school did he go? Lassiter High School, I think.
Okay. I knew he went to Tech.
And
I didn't know anymore.
yeah, and I think he was just kind of like an East Cobb kind of legend.
Right.
And went to Georgia Tech, and I think he played with Mark Teixeira. I want to say that he did. I'm trying to think if they were there at the same time, but it's like his pictures on the wall at Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Like he was that good, at that level, and I wish he had played longer. I think he played a couple more years, but ended up getting released. But Scott and I had a really good time, and being a relief pitcher, I'm sure is really tough, not knowing when you're going to pitch and play and that type of thing. But man, we had a good time, and we stuck to it for a couple years.
Yeah. What's the best line from basketball?
I don't think I could say that. I don't think I could say that. There's so many, but no, I don't even want to get into that. Yeah.
Okay.
There's probably some inappropriate ones, but I'll save that for me and Scott offline here.
He said it's easy to get sick of teammates, but we never got sick of each other. We lived together for like 2.5, 3 years, and not once did we ever have like a tense moment or anything like that. And this is funny because you're saying this too. He said Bo was my partner in crime when we went out. So it's funny. In A-ball, the only place to hang out was at TGI Fridays, so we regularly shut down TGI Fridays. True?
Yeah, true. Yeah, that was in Woodbridge, Virginia, in Potomac for sure.
Yeah, and I guess we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but he has some. I'll play a clip here in a second about. He called it Old Haven and not New Haven, where you guys played the next year.
New Haven, Connecticut, man. That's an old township. I'll tell you that. It's where Yale is, and we played at Yale Field, which is older than dirt, and was not great. But there were some fun things about Old Haven for sure.
You know what? I'm just gonna play it now. Here we go. Old Haven, Scott Prather.
When we got to AA, we were in New Haven, Connecticut, that was Bo and I. We'd always joke around. We called it Old Haven. They're like, oh, this is where George Bush played at this field, when he played at Yale. And I'm like, yeah, nothing's changed.
Mark Dejohn said it was the worst field in the whole league, and everyone hated playing there.
Oh, it was awful, and to the point where, you see movies like the mascot. We had this mascot, Rally, and then they added a female mascot. You see, it was like Rally and Rally the Raven and Ruby the Raven or whatever. And that, I don't even think they wanted to be there. They were the most depressing mascots in all the league. They would introduce them, and you just pictured somebody in the costume being like drunk and just miserable, not wanting to be there.
That's a great one.
That's right. I think that's right on. There was just a lot. The clubhouse was subpar.
Yeah.
The stadium was, needed repair. Or it was like 440 feet to center.
Oh gosh,
it
one of
was
those.
like it was just, it was a mess. We ended up making the playoffs that year.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, because maybe it was just because we won so many games at home, because other teams would come in and go, man, this place is awful. How do you, and they would not feel comfortable, and it was our home. So we would be like as comfortable as we could be. And maybe we played a little better there, but
use that to your advantage. Yeah,
I know. Right. But yeah, no, Scott and I, man, we had some good times. We really did. And, on and off the field kind of things, and life, and, growing up and stuff. But yeah, he was definitely a good time friend, as you can tell.
He said you guys also would another movie that you guys will still text stuff and back and forth, like little quotes and stuff. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. That was another one of your favorites.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That was when all those started to come out, for sure. That's all we could do is watch movies,
Right.
We'd watch DVDs, and we'd be on the bus, 12-hour bus ride, and I mean, we got to watch movies somehow. We got to do something to kill the time. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's all we did is watch Braveheart every other trip, and mix in a comedy like Jay and Silent Bob or basketball.
That's funny.
First you get the jobs, then you get the khakis, then you get the chicks.
There it
that
is.
was the line from basketball.
That's PG. We can do that one for sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's see. He said you were the stubby clap of the minors, very positive, fan favorite, a hustler. Not to be negative, but if someone told me he was going to go to the big leagues next year, I would have said no chance. And he said that with a chuckle. Made you want to play hard around him. Always had high energy, always positive. Could never tell if he was 4 for 4 or 0 for 4. Always a fan favorite. Had a positive energy about him. That was just his way. I always admired that about him. Intense in a positive way. One of those grinders, would never ask for a day off. Always wanted to be in the lineup. When you had your moment, he said he was happy for you, but in a joking way, kind of jealous. And I bet a lot of people felt that way. What an experience. I mean, they still have Bo Hart Bobble Night and stuff like that. And he played in 80 games, but he's this cult figure, and he says you deserve it. Happy to tell people that he was my roommate and friend. Couldn't have happened to a better person. AAA, this was interesting. AAA is full of bitter guys who think they should be in the big leagues. And I never heard anyone say that, but it totally makes sense. Yeah. He told me a story about you guys going to a Jimmy Buffett concert, and like you met some like random family because that's kind of who you are. You just like make friends with people. And he said, typical Bo, we're at their house at like 1 a.m. swimming and eating 7-layer bean dip. That happened?
It's so funny. Yeah, that happened. It was the All-Star break, and he's like, "Hey, let's go down to Virginia Beach. It's not too far, and we'll go to Jimmy Buffett, and we'll just have a couple days off." I said, "That's a great idea." And so I think he was more of a parrot head than I was, but we had a great pre-party, just talking to people in the parking lot, and then you make your way into the venue. It's like it's open air, an amphitheater. Yeah. And you just kind of standing there, whatever, listening to Buffett and talking to people. And we met this family with like, kids our age too, and then, but also, their parents, and they're like, "You guys are great. We're going back, have an after party." And so we go to this immaculate home, that's 2 blocks from the beach, and it's late night, and they got cooler. Like it's a whole planned like after party, right? Yeah. And so there's just food everywhere, and we're in their pool, right? It's just crazy with 25 people or whatever, and the best thing there was a 7-layer dip. That was a joke that we kept making for years for some reason.
That's great. Cool here. So we're moving on to our double. Oh wait, I got one last one. He talking about Mark Dejohn. This is still Scott. He said DJ likes to drop F-bombs. Unreal how much he dropped F-bombs. A real comedian, funny at giving life advice, and he used to always mess with the bus driver, and we'll get to some of that stuff. But
yeah, that's very true too.
Super fun talking to him. So now we're going to Double-A, man, and this can be the year where it makes or breaks a lot of people. That jump to Double-A. From what I didn't personally have that experience, but what I think I understand about baseball, that can be a very huge year, a big jump in competition. Those kind of are the prospects. Would love to hear how that spring training went, and then moving on from there.
I think the spring training went fairly normal. I think I was on the AAA roster for like the first 2 weeks. Yeah. But systematically, people get bumped down from the big leagues and bumped down in their whatever status or evaluation level that they've been designated. And I think I knew I was going to be on the Double-A team, or at least I was on that roster as people kind of get filed out.
Sure.
But it was good. I think I still had something to prove. I still hadn't put together a full season yet because I had broke my hand 2 years in a row. Mm-hmm. And, but still, and I think that spring training is when I had that conversation with the minor league field coordinator, Joe Patini. Yeah. It was after like a game or a workout at some point. And I said, "Hey, because you got to walk like 200 yards from the fields to the clubhouse or whatever." And I was like, "Hey, Joe," I was like, "Hey, am I doing all the right things? Am I, I'm not asking him like, where am I in the pecking order here?" And am I going to make this team? But I said, am I going about it the right way? It's pretty much what I said.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what, Bo? He said, you play hard, you listen, you don't think you're better than this game.
Mhm.
You are the type of player that we need in this organization.
Oh, cool.
But if you just continue to listen, continue to get better, and continue to develop with the opportunities that you get, then that's really all you can do. He didn't say sky's the limit or you'll be in the big leagues or anything like that. It was like, you just keep doing what you're doing, and continue to get better every year, and then what's going to stop you, right?
Yeah.
So that was an awesome conversation with him.
Yeah.
And going right into spring training, as I made that, or into AA season out of spring training, making that team, there were some prospects on that team.
Yeah.
There were some guys, you could see it kind of filtering where guys were not getting any better, or they didn't have an opportunity because there weren't enough spots. But that team we had was, I want to say stacked, but I want to say, 30 or 40% of that team ended up playing in the big leagues at some point.
Yeah. Yep.
So it was a great team to be on. And we had DJ, who was a very humorous manager. And again, joked around being the best manager ever, but he partly was true, because not only could he manage the game really well, but he managed the clubhouse really well with jokes and making light of things and calling people out. Like he would kind of from time to time just walk into the clubhouse, and we're all like, before a game, when you have like an hour, he'd come in there and just kind of just like, not lay into guys, but he would sit there and make a joke about every single person.
That's what Scott said.
He would not single out anybody. He would be like,
everyone's getting it.
You know what your problem is? And it would like, everybody would be laughing.
Yeah.
And,
Listen, everyone up.
It just totally.
That's awesome.
Totally vibed with that team we had, because everybody could take a joke and then, dish it back if they needed to. But we gave DJ his moments and his respect to just, roast everybody around the room a couple times. And it was really great. It was really good. And I got roasted just as much as the next guy. And our team was pretty successful despite playing in Old Haven,
Old Haven. And that's really fascinating that you went and asked DJ about kind of where you stood, because when I talked to him, he specifically mentioned that he was not afraid to let it rip if a player asked him that. I mean, he would tell you, if your dog mess, your dog mess. But so don't come to him and ask him a question you don't want to hear the answer to. So I'm glad you got a decent answer there.
Well, it was a different time, because I asked Joe that originally, and DJ, what we'll get into here in a minute, because this was the turning point for me. Because when we were playing at home one night, and I think it was maybe a month and a half into the season, I'm hitting 220 or something, 240, and I got hit by a pitch and broke my hand for the third year in a row.
Yeah, be kidding me.
I broke my thumb, broke the same thumb again.
Wow.
And so it was really 3 years in a row. I mean, 2 years in a row was devastating, especially with having a solid season the year before. But here I am on my way to the hospital again with the trainer after the game, like in tears. And I'm saying, like, why does this keep happening to me?
Yeah.
And, he didn't have an answer. I mean, his name is Chris Conroy. He's in the big leagues right now. He has been the last 5 years or 10 years. Mm-hmm. So they got to work their way up too.
Yeah.
And so he was in A-ball with me. He was in AA with me. He was in AAA, and then he was in the big leagues. But he was trying to do his best to console me, and and he did a good job. And I think when we were at the hospital, though, I said, "Can we just X-ray my other thumb and call it negative so I can keep playing somehow?" And he's like, "Can't do that, Bo. Can't do that." But I think it was a little bit of a quicker recovery because it didn't get shattered. It was just kind of cracked.
Okay.
And so it was maybe 6 weeks, 7 weeks, not the full 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And that's when I got to work. I mean, that's when Steve Balboni and I started to work together.
Yeah.
And try to figure things out. And there was a conversation, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks when I came back. I was struggling a little bit, and I think I was trying to do too much. And it was after a game. I was in the clubhouse, and I'm in the training room, and having a beer and icing my whole body, I think, at that point. and DJ walked in, and he just started laying into me. And he's like, "What are you doing in here? Do you think you deserve to be in the training room? You're not doing anything." He was, and it was kind of like half joking, but then it became really serious. And we talked for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And there was another player in there, I think, in the the trainer, Chris. And so it was just kind of like this awareness of how I was going about my performance on the field.
Yeah.
And it kind of hit home, because I think I was pressing a little bit, because I was like three broken hands
right
in the last 3 seasons. I got to do something. I'm running out of time.
Yeah.
So after that conversation, and DJ kind of just was sweating, and he wiped his bald head, and he stormed off or whatever. and the one thing that he said that stuck with me during that conversation was, he's like, "You need to realize and be the player that you are, not the player that you want to be."
Oh, man.
And I was deep. Like,
wow.
It was deep. It was really deep, especially during that conversation as your manager who's, telling you this. So I went home that night. I didn't go out with Scott. I went home, and I sat on the couch until probably 1 or 2 in the morning, and I made a list.
Who am I? Yeah, right.
Pretty much. I have the list. I have the list still. I hand wrote a list that, offensively, defensively, base running. Yep. And I said, the player that I need to be. And that's how I titled it. And I wrote down everything, all the little things, like better with 2 strikes, put the ball in play, make the routine play, make the amazing play from time to time, turn a double play, move the guy over, bunt, all these things that
you still have this?
I still have that piece of paper. Yeah.
Can you please send a picture of that to me?
I think I have it at home in a file. I think
if you can find it sometime, that'd be really cool. I'd love to see something like that. That's a moment, man.
It was really amazing.
Yeah,
it is pivotal. And so I wrote down this list, and the next day I went into DJ's office, and I was like, "DJ, you got a minute?" And he's like, "What do you want?" And I said, "I made a list of the things that the player that I need to be." And he cracked a smile, and he's like, "Let me see it." Mm-hmm. So we went over this list, and I think that was a turning point in how he saw me. And it was obviously impactful on me, because now I was like, okay, this is the player that I need to be. And we talked about a few of the things. And he's like, absolutely, that's what you got to do in these 7 things. And that was the turning point for me and him, but also for my mindset of there is still time for me to advance in this game, even though I've missed the equivalent of 1 season out of the last 3.
Yeah.
And started to do a little bit extra work, started to do, things with Steve Balboni, who would do everything. I would ask him, "Hey, Steve, I want to go hit?" And he'd be like, "Let's go." He would never, there was nothing more important than that to him.
Yeah.
And the drills that we did over the next, 3 or 6 weeks until the end of that season built my confidence back up offensively. And then with the awareness of not trying to hit home runs, that's not my job.
Yeah.
Do the little things, do them right. That's how I'm going to get better and provide more value. So that whole combination of DJ and Steve Balboni, were Bones was his nickname.
Yeah.
They call him Bones. Was that whole combination of the last 2 months of that year was put me in a really good place mentally, even though I hit like 250.
Yeah.
It was it set me up for next spring training.
Cool.
And potentially being in AAA, which was the next level. Like there was no thinking of the big leagues at that point.
Right. Oh, this is fascinating. You hit 249 that year, 4 bombs, 17 doubles, 12 hit by pitches. You've kind of described how you had this surgery in the middle here.
and you told me that Balboni saved your career hitting wise, and then you also told me personally that Mark DJ was the greatest skipper you ever had, greatest manager, and he's got a joke about that. But let me get to some quotes here. Are you cool with that? Running it, man, and he was
sure
an absolute riot, and we've got some funny clips ahead if you can imagine. But yeah, Mark Dejohn, DJ. So what was his nickname again? Bones?
DJ. Oh, Balboni.
Oh, Balboni was Bones.
Right.
Yep, got it. Okay, yep. So Mark Dejohn, he himself would refer to himself as greatest manager in the world, but in like a funny way. Like he said he would like come on the bus and be like, I'm the greatest manager in the world, and like stuff like that. But he said he never got like the same breaks like someone like Tony La Russa got. He said it in a very tongue-in-cheek way. It wasn't like woe is me to the world or anything like that. But former major league player, minor league manager in Double-A, spent some time on Tony La Russa's staff as a field coordinator as well. Let's see. Here we go. Had Bo in Double-A in 2002. Me and Steve Balboni were together for 3 years. He hit 240, 250 for me, but you could tell there was more there. Our yard was the worst field to hit at in the Eastern League. No one wants to come there and play. We needed deep, and we use that to our advantage. We call it the old Yale field. You couldn't discourage this guy in any way. His motor was always running, had such an amazing start to his big league career. His desire was great. You could not discourage this guy. He always bounced back, always positive. I bet the reason he is so successful in life, and he has the same attitude he had on the field. Brings the energy, the positivity. You can't knock him down. A pleasure to have him. His teammates loved him. He pulled for the other guys. He wanted to win. He played hard. There's no I in team, but there is an M and a me. And he talked about that on developing players. And he said you have to be a little bit selfish in the minor leagues to keep progressing. Like, it's kind of funny thing, like coming up in baseball, it's beat into like team. But then you get to the minors and you have to be selfish in some ways to advance and focus on your stats. I mean, you can be a team guy, rah, but that doesn't get you to the next level.
No, that's a good point,
right.
because you are competing against your teammates to get to the next level because there are so many spots.
That's
available.
why I said earlier, the competition.
Totally.
Had the ability to be a big league utility guy. That's what he thought. And I thought that's fascinating, dude, because looking back, like, I thought you could have been Jose Oquendo 2.0, the secret weapon, man, like with your ability to play all these positions. And yeah, I think that they missed the boat on you there. In today's game, he would have been so valuable because he could play any position. He could run, all those things. Would have been an incredible coach, had so much energy. We didn't even turn the lights on when he walked in the room because Bo turned them on himself. Yeah, that's cool. I was the type of manager that pushed guys that wasn't easy to play for. I pushed them to be better. I wouldn't last today. I'd get run out in 3 days. Wasn't afraid to tell players the truth. When you manage players, the biggest thrill is to see guys get to the big leagues and feel like you helped them along the way and you gave them the keys and now they're driving. He felt a lot of pride in seeing you and also other guys that he's helped shape along the way. He's a guy that stands out, charismatic, fun to be around, old school, one of my favorites. Now it's clip time, and I'm pumped about these. Let's go. Mark Dejohn on Lieutenant Dan. We'll call this clip is called Lieutenant Dan. Ready?
Oh man, yeah.
Right.
He was, trying to help him become better at turning a double play at second base.
Uh-huh.
And I told him, I said, you gotta, Bo, you gotta be able. He'd stay in there. He'd get hit. And I said, man, you keep turning the double like this. And I said, you're going to end up like, Lieutenant Dan on Forrest Gump with titanium legs and stuff, And we would laugh and stuff. But you got to use you got to learn how to get out of the way. You got to use, learn how to use the back.
All right, that's hilarious. Nick, you got anything on that?
Yeah, totally. He did help me, and I remember that either during camp or a spring training or whatever, the middle infield coaches were like, okay, there are 6 different ways to turn a double play at second.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, 6? Like, I can think of 3, right? And their advice was pick one of the 6 and do that one really well, and then use your athletic ability to
interesting
improvise if it's a bad throw or whatever.
Yeah.
So DJ reminded me of that, and I soon got better at avoiding and using the bag in my as a defense mechanism, because the rules are different now than they are then, because you could slide past the bag 15 feet. You could start sliding at the bag if you wanted to. And there was a lot of contact, and a lot of times where I was on my back, and turned the double play, but still a lot of contact, and the base runners, doing their job. I never got hurt, but he did always make that joke. He's like, you're going to have titanium legs because you're going to get, rolled over one too many times. So he absolutely helped in that respect too, is trying to have the confidence, but also the technique at second when you turn a double play to avoid the contact. So it really did help.
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't end up like Lieutenant Dan.
Me too.
All right. Next one, Dejohn's describing Bo, and I saved a couple of these. I've got a whole bunch of quotes and clips that I did not use in any of these guys that I saved for when we get to your big league stuff. It's all pertaining to that, so I thought I would just do it all then. So this is DJ describing Bo.
Great kid, just a great kid with he had talent. I mean, he was a talented he could run. He was a good infielder. He developed as a hitter, but he was a high energy guy, real high energy. Came to play every day, played hard, and actually was an easy guy to manage. You could get on him, and he never took it personal. He was he was fun to manage, because you never had to worry about him. The big thing when you're managing is you tell guys, basically two things, is show up on time and play hard. And you didn't, you had no problem with him doing either.
So that's great. So that's through our DJ clips here from Mark Dejohn. I'd love to move on to Steve Balboni, unless you have anything to add about DJ there.
No, I mean, again, he's just very influential, and he was very honest, and I don't want to say he was hard, even though he said he was hard to play for. He was a joy to play for. Yeah, because I think there's a lot of mutual respect, and a lot of it's earned. Yeah. And he earned my respect when he, the way that he went about his business each day, and it sounded like I earned his with the way that I did the same. So
100%.
No, he was great, and really a turning point, and a pivotal point in me getting to the next level. Yeah.
And then I have to share this story, because you personally know how hard I've worked to get a hold of some of these guys, and what I did to get a hold of some of these guys. And I really scraped and scrapped to find these guys. And my Steve Balboni story, I think, is kind of funny how I got a hold of him. So there's all kinds of search engines out there that scrape for people's information. So like, he's kind of a ghost. He's hard to find. And I ended up finding, like, there's some websites will give you like old emails, old numbers, places they've lived, all this stuff. Anyway, I got a hold of a number that I thought was Steve Balboni. I texted it. Turns out it's his wife, Eve. She was lovely, but she kind of told me that she handles all his stuff. And I told her what I was doing. And she goes, okay, let me talk to him. Text me back in a week. And I was like, okay, cool. So I texted her back in a week. Essentially, we talked for about 2 or 3 weeks, me and the wife and I, and she was kind of building trust. I guess we were building trust. She was trying to see if I'm a real person or what I'm doing. And then eventually she finally, gatekeeped to me and let me through and gave me Steve's number. And, I got to talk to him. That was an absolute honor. Like, I'm such a baseball historian. Like, I love talking to some of these old salty baseball guys has just been such a thrill for me. And like, Balboni is like the 80s slugger, dude. Like, huge man, huge arms, the mustache. Oh man. He had like a ton of bombs for the Royals back in the day. There's a whole, like, the legend of Balboni, the curse of the Balboni. There was like some kind of curse where no one had hit over 36 home runs and been in the World Series or won a World Series for some amount of time. But really cool talking to this guy. And you said he saved your career hitting wise.
I mean, he really did, just because he was dedicated to bringing out the best in each player, right? It wasn't just this one flat philosophy that went across the whole team, if you will.
Yeah.
And I feel that he really knew the type of player that I was, and that I'm sure he and DJ had conversations and whatnot. But the extra work that we did and the conversations we had during the game and before and after, just really helped me see hitting in a different way.
Yeah.
And it was all about getting the barrel to the ball. Like, and practicing that. Like, there's these tee drills that we did that really helped me technically of how to get the barrel to the ball, especially when the ball was in. And it absolutely helped me build my confidence after missing, 6 or 8 weeks, and to bounce back from that injury and help with my, like I said, my confidence and things. And it did really, because I think I could have spiraled kind of, not out of control, but spiraled into, well, this is going to keep happening. I could have went a completely different direction. And not only DJ, but Bones helped me build my confidence back at the plate, and developed me as a hitter in a very short amount of time, before the season was over. And it was, I'll always remember that. I still remember those drills. I teach some of the high school guys some of those, and it's hard for them at times. There's a few guys that through the years have been able to grasp that, and it's been great to reminisce on that time, because that season ends the next year. I'm in AAA.
Oh man, here we go.
There we are. Yeah.
And he remembers it too, man. One of his quotes was, "I can picture him now in the cage with me if I close my eyes." So like, he remembers all that same stuff too, dude. Like, and that must have been such a cool coaching staff too. Like, I imagine Mark Dejohn and Balboni seems like a real laid back guy. Do I have that kind of? Would you describe?
I think
like
so.
That?
Yeah. When he did speak out, he was profound, and everybody listened.
Yeah.
And I think that he had a lot to give, and it was more one-on-one than it was in a team sense.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we had several conversations, and I know he was having it with everybody. I mean, our team was pretty successful that year, so it wasn't just me.
Now, if we circle back, I remember Steve Hertz multiple times said that you were a dead pull. So have you been progressing in your hitting approach, or is this kind of when you? I mean, how about I read this quote real quick? This is from Balboni. Even though he was a dead pull hitter. No, sorry. He said, even though I was a dead pull hitter, referring to himself. He goes, I was a big leaguer using. I did not use the whole field, and I had to learn to hit the other way after my career. I learned how to figure that out. He goes, I didn't know how to do it when I was a player, but figured it out as a coach, and that's what I did with Bo. Try to get him to use the whole field, use his speed, become a good hitter. He was strong and could hit it out, but we were trying to get him to go with the pitch, take what they give you, become a total hitter.
And that's very true. I think that was the first year that I hit since college, an opposite field home run.
Interesting.
And that was at Yale Field. And I remember it, and it was almost like he was so proud.
Yeah.
He was like, oh my gosh, look what you just did. Like, that's what we've been working on. And mostly singles and doubles to right center and that type of thing. But to pop one to right field was awesome. I remember we had a moment about that, but I was a dead pull in college. I mean, I got an aluminum bat in my hand. Why not pull the ball?
Right. Yeah.
So, but you need to develop and mature as a hitter. And that was, to Steve's point, that's exactly what his message was. He's like, yes, I'm going to teach you how to hit the ball that's, in, but we need to let it get deep, and you need to go the other way. And so those types of conversations, I think that was the pivotal point, because I think the next year I was using the whole field more than I ever had.
Can you remember a specific drill that you felt like was really beneficial to that, like letting you get deep and going the opposite way?
Well, it was a tee drill that we would work on the extreme inside high pitch.
Yep.
And you would have a fungo in your hand. And fungo obviously is, a bat you hit ground balls with, but you would have to pull your hand so far in to get the barrel to it, to try to hit the ball at the middle. And you would start at that most extreme high, like by your neck almost, inside the plate. And then you would progressively go lower and across the plate to then hit the ball to right field. And it became so easy to hit the ball that was out over the middle of the plate and beyond because of the extreme.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of exaggeration drills that you do hitting wise in the cage that translate into what really does need to be done when you're on the field. And that was the first time really that it was broken down for me, that I was like, it's easy to hit the ball to right field. It's not a struggle anymore.
Yeah.
And same with the inside pitch. So it was a twofold drill that we did all the time.
Yeah.
And that's the one that that really did save. I'm attributing it to that because it changed my perception. It changed my confidence, and it changed kind of, my bat path to the ball.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that you're giving all this gratitude to all these guys that helped you along the way. That's one of the best parts about this whole thing, isn't it? Being able to like say thank you to these people that.
Absolutely.
Man, yeah, so cool. All right, I've got a couple bye-bye Balboni clips here, and we'll go from there. Well, this one is bye-bye Balboni on Working Hard.
Yeah, but I mean, Bo was I loved working. He wanted to work hard. He was great to work with, and some guys come up and they're kind of hesitant, to try different things or to do different things, and he wanted to learn. He wanted information, and he worked at it and put it to use. He wanted to go in the cage. He wanted to work at things, and he was a pleasure to have around, and full of energy.
Everyone said that.
A lot of energy, and which was nice to see.
Bo specifically said this, that you saved his career. Working with him, hitting wise. Does that mean anything to you when you hear something like that? Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think he's exaggerating a little bit. No, I mean, I helped him, with giving him information, but he was a good player. He was gonna do well. I'm sure. I just helped him probably figure things out a little quicker by giving him information that he could use at that level. But I'm sure he would have figured it out on his own at some point. But no, I was glad he feel that I was able to help him, and it was. I mean, any of the guys that I helped, that I coached and ended up making it, I was really, I was happy. It's just it's rewarding. Not that not for me. It was just rewarding to see them succeed, because they were all good, really good guys, and they really wanted it. And it's really nice to see people that work hard and really want something, work hard to get it, and then accomplish it.
Love that. And then here's on Bo working hard. Wait, on Bo being fun to be around. Sorry.
The biggest thing I remember about Bo is just it was a pleasure to be around. He was funny. He was full of energy. A lot of hustle, which was nice to see, because you didn't see that from everybody all the time. I mean, hustle no matter what the score was, he just played all out. And what I really liked about Bo was he seemed to just really enjoy the game.
Yeah,
it was fun to it's fun to watch somebody do something that they love, and it was obvious that he loved playing.
Love to hear it. That concludes our bye-bye.
That's awesome.
Clips. Yeah. You got anything on that?
No, I mean, I would say he's right, because I wasn't the most talented guy ever at any level that I played. And so I had to not stand out. I wasn't trying to be a spectacle or anything, but I was just trying to make sure that I played as hard, so I have no regrets, I guess. But that's just, I never wanted to be seen somebody who was kind of dogging it or just kind of half-assing anything. So but it was easy. I don't want to say it was easy, but that was just the way that I was. It was like, I'm just going to bust my butt down the line and, try to leg out a double or a triple and dive, even though we're winning 10-0. I'm going to try to dive and make an out, like those types of things. So
I love it.
That's awesome to hear him say that.
Yeah, it's so cool. And like I said, an absolute honor for me to talk to both of these guys. I love talking to just imagine the amount of, that's 80 years of baseball between those guys. Essentially in pro baseball, like talk about salty. Absolute honor. Okay, here we go. So we get through our AA year. Anything unique about the offseason or anything like that? We've got about 20 minutes left here. We're going to wrap it up kind of right before we get to like the big deal here, the magic moment, and then we'll pick it back up.
No, I mean, again, third year in a row breaking your hand and trying to develop and being on the verge of going to the next level. I didn't want to repeat AA just because I'd missed 2 months or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I hope I can continue and get to that one step closer. But it wasn't. I say that now, but I don't think I was thinking that then. I'm one step closer to the big leagues. Again, it was the furthest thing from my mind going into spring training the next year.
Mm-hmm.
But the off season was normal. That's when I think I worked at Nordstrom.
Nordstrom's, yeah,
that was great. I had a good time. I'm just trying to pay my rent because I don't make very much money.
Are you still in Arizona or are you back in California Okay.
No, still in Arizona and just trying to pay rent and get ready for the next year. I mean, it was the minor leagues is a struggle financially.
Yeah,
it really is.
Absolutely.
I wasn't on the 40 man. I didn't sign for a lot of them. I didn't have like $100,000 in the bank to kind of offset that. That was a tough offseason, just trying to make sure that I was gonna.
No, a lot of guys get what I call scholarship from mom and dad, helping getting by. Are you getting any of that, or are you on your own?
No, I'm on my own, and that was the way I wanted it, which was fine. And it was I don't want to say there's life lessons because there was no like problems. It was just a struggle to make enough money.
Yeah.
When you only are working for like 4 months, 4 or 5 months, and then there's no career. It's really a part-time job. So, or a seasonal job, and that's what Nordstrom turned into be. And I think that's on the back of one of my baseball cards. Like it says that, I think, which is really funny.
Nordstrom
employee. And the way that you could read it, it's like I got called up from Nordstrom.
like you were out on the floor selling shirts, and they were like, "Hey, you're calling the big leagues."
I know. That's what's kind of humorous about it, but it did help me. And Nordstrom is a really great brand, and it was awesome. It was a lot of fun, but again, I didn't take my stuff too seriously, and I just needed a paycheck, and that's what it was. And and it was just fine. It was just fine. But in the off season, getting ready for spring training, that's always exciting. And it was going into AAA or into spring training, trying to make that AAA team was, I think it was quite tough. There was a lot of great players. And again, that was when I got to maybe be in a split squad game.
So I was going to ask next.
Major league games,
cool.
You would be told in the morning that you would go in the afternoon so you could plan your day, and you had a different workout, and you would get meal money, and you would you get to put on a big league jersey. It would be like number 82, but it would still be really fun. And to play the last 3 innings at second and get one at bat was a highlight for any of the minor league guys to go to do that, whether you travel to 45 minutes or 2 hours away. But when they played 2 different games, they split the big league team up into 2 teams, and minor league guys had to fill that. So that was a lot of fun. I did that, I think, a handful of times, 4 times during spring training. And
a cool experience. Yeah,
it was. And then, I just, again, continuing to put the work in and continuing to develop. And I think that's why I continued, even though I had missed a lot of time. There was still at bats to be had and to be evaluated, but I continued to inch my way up. And I don't have spring training stats. I was kind of a slow starter.
Mm-hmm.
I think I needed 50 or 100 at bats in spring training, and and at the beginning of each season to kind of ramp up just like any other player would.
Absolutely.
Some players could do it right from the beginning, but it would all average out to 250, 300 for everybody.
Yeah.
But I was a little bit of a slow starter, but I was so glad I made that team. It wasn't even funny. Like,
knocking on the door. Yeah.
It was a really solid team, and AAA is when you start flying around the country instead of bus rides.
Yeah.
Because those can be the pits.
Easier travel.
it wasn't easier. I'll tell you that,
Okay.
because it was 6 a.m. flights twice a week,
Yeah.
to and from, and you'd fly, and then you'd have a connection, and then you'd fly again. You'd land at noon or 2, and then have to go right to the ballpark.
Yeah.
And then when you're getting up at 4 in the morning, just when you've gone to bed at 11,
Pretty tough.
it is tough. And
Yeah.
but when you're a young man, it's fine. And,
Yeah, you can power
you
through
get
it.
through it. If we did it now, I'd be like, oh my God, I need a day of recovery. But it's no, it was totally fine. It was a grind.
Yeah.
And so you do that every 10 days or so, to and from the road and coming home and stuff. But I'll be honest, when I was in Memphis, and I walked from the hotel before we got our apartment. I walked down Monroe Avenue, and it was only like a 3-year-old stadium, and it sat 17,000 people.
Wow.
And it was right downtown. It was
Yeah.
fairly new, and I felt like I was in the big league just like looking at it. It
Yeah.
looked like it was a major league stadium, is what
Sure.
it looked like.
Yeah.
The clubhouse was cushy and TVs everywhere. And coming from Old Haven to Memphis,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like, there's a fridge in here, and there's like TVs everywhere. And look at this training room. There's a hot tub, and
Yeah.
there's a gym to work out in, and there's a batting cages that are in a tunnel, not outside in the rain, kind of thing. So I felt like I was like, I've made it. This is great.
Absolutely.
AAA Memphis is awesome. So it was a lot of fun coming to Memphis for the first time, and getting started and things, and it started pretty well the first part of the season. It really did.
Yeah. Obviously, this is the year. We're not going to get to it in this episode. We don't have even close to time because, I've got a lot. But a really, really strong year. 297, 13 hit by pitches, 7 bombs, 2 triples, 14 doubles, and 67 games. Of course, playing for Danny Sheaffer here, who called you a joy to manage, said you had no baggage. One of those guys that you didn't have to worry about. Sometimes managers have to, worry about this guy's behavior or this or that. You were just like none of that kind of a guy. What, you know what? Let me play a Danny Sheaffer clip on, all right. We're back after a short break, and we're going to just finish up here. Yeah. A couple more minutes. And then, part 3 will be Bo's magic moment. We're going to go so far down that rabbit hole. I don't know if we're ever going to come out. Anyway, this is Danny Sheaffer on Bo, as a player and your efforts. Here we go.
Well, I remember Bo, when you talk about baseball players, there's different categories, and there's people with great talent. There's people that are scrappers. There's people that, have good baseball IQs, et cetera. But, Bo was kind of all of the above. Bo was a really, really good player, but Bo was a guy that you knew that you were getting his best effort every day. You knew that he was an overachiever to some, because he did some things not only at the AAA level but at the big league level that guys are thinking that why did we miss this guy, because he wasn't a giant prospect in everybody's mind, but
right.
He's basically what we call a baseball player. He was very athletic, and he made the routine play look routine.
Really cool. And then this will be our last clip. You have anything to say on that?
We can talk about Danny here when you play the last one. That's fine.
Yeah. And this one is called "Give Me a Whole Team of Bo's."
Yeah. Well, Bo, the way he played on the field, commanded respect in the clubhouse. He wasn't a guy that was up and down on the field. He was a guy that was very calm, and he was also, very even keel. But, if I had a whole bunch of players like Bo, I'd be real happy, because he was a great teammate.
Love to hear stuff like that.
It is great. Danny was he was a great manager, and again, only for like a month and a half, but he was a pro, and I think he loved the game so much. And I think he was a little bit of a purist. He wanted the game played the right way, and I fit right into that for him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right.
And so I respected Danny a tremendous amount, even though I probably didn't vocalize it to him. I wasn't really outspoken, on the field. I was a leader, but I wasn't philosophizing about pitch count theory, or you know, it was, I listened to what Danny had to share with us. Maybe I asked him a few questions, but again, I was trying to lead by example and to play the way that he described. I think I was ultimately an overachiever because, you know, I wasn't supposed to achieve everything that I did, at least on paper.
Right.
And so he's exactly right. But I did try to give that effort, and I think that's been the consistent thing since college is, you know, the effort will always be there, you know, and for every level to kind of recognize that through all the clips that you're playing, which is just amazing.
It's fun.
It is fun, but yeah, it was that. It's really great to hear the things from everybody, because I haven't talked to these guys in years, you know, and to hear them articulate it this way is just, it's great. It really is great. And I remember everybody. I remember conversations we had. I remember, you know, all the things.
Yeah, this is so special. I think we really are doing something special here, and this is, I cannot wait, like I said, to get to this next part. We're tentatively supposed to shoot tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to sleep tonight. I'm so excited to do this dang thing, but it's all teed up. This has been amazing. You've been fantastic. Thank you for everyone out there listening. This is going to be part 2. I don't know how many parts are going to be. We're just going to keep doing these until it's done, and it's done when it's done. So this was amazing. Thank you so much, Bo. Thank you, everyone listening. Post-game spread. We're out. Come back for part 3.
Yeah, it's really great. And Blake, you know, I appreciate you doing all the research and things and reaching out to begin with, but also thank you to DJ and Danny and and Bones and Scott and everybody who is contributing to this, because it is piecing things together for me.
100%.
And you know, on the field stuff and the clubhouse kind of stuff, and you know, it's really it's been a lot of fun. Hopefully we're peeling the onion enough. But I feel like we'll get a little deeper here on as we start talking about, you know, what happened in the big leagues and things. It's about to get real. It's going to be really fun. Yeah, it's going to be great. So,
okay.
Appreciate it.
Well, post-game spread, we're out. Thanks, everyone. See you, buddy.